What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than a crazy man in a cave and tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore.
So true.
So true. Tonight, we will be bringing you some Japanese tales, some folk tales, fairy tales, tales of
Japan.
Tales of tales.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some are fun.
All tails, no heads.
Oh, there's a few heads.
There's a few heads. Where's our... Yeah, we got a few stories to get through for you guys. So I hope you enjoy them.
Yes.
Go ahead and take it away there, Kimbo.
Thank you. Story number 1.
Number 1.
Home in a chest.
Home in the chest.
In a chest.
Home in your breasts.
Oh, okay. One time, Kaishu, the abbot of Gaion Temple, was paying secret visits to the mansion which belonged to one of the capital's most prominent provincial governors.
I feel like they could have added a couple more pieces there. He was the purest, most prominent prodigal prophet.
And practical.
The
governor caught wind of the affair, but for some time pretended not to notice.
This affair is just blowing in my face.
Once, while the governor was out, Kaishu slipped into the house and made himself right at home. When the governor came back, he noticed that his wife and the other women seemed a bit flustered, and he understood right away what the trouble must be. In the women's part of the house, he noted that along the storage chest, which normally stood open, was now closed and locked. Obviously, that is where they had the fellow hidden.
While you're out there at work, he's back home begging your wife.
The governor called a senior retainer and had him summon 2 worksmen, and then he ordered the chest be carried immediately to Gaion as a fee for having some sutras chanted there. Off the chest went the workmen's shoulders, accompanied by the retainer, bearing a formal note. Though horrified, the wife and her women kept quiet. The Gaion monks came out to receive the chest, were much impressed with the donor's generosity. They said to each other,
"Oh, go and get the abbot. We can't very well open it without him."
But the one who came back after a long delay to report that the abbot was nowhere to be found. The retainer complained that he had no time to wait, and he insisted,
I'm here. Nobody's going to accuse you of anything. Just go ahead and open it. I'm in a hurry.
The monks were still wondering what to do when a doleful little voice from inside the chest piped up.
Psst, any monk will do, you know.
The monks could hardly believe their ears, but very gingerly they opened the chest, and out popped the head of their abbot. The sight so alarmed them that they kept all fled, and so did the retainer. Meanwhile, the abbot extracted himself from the chest and ran to hide.
Anybody got Gatorade?
Of course, the governor could have hauled Kaishu straight out of the chest and given him a few good, swift kicks. But this would not have looked very good. It was wise for him to shame the man instead. Kaishu was always a fast talker, and even in the chest, he had something to say. Dun-dun-dun.
Dun-dun-dun. Hey, I'm a real fast talker over here. Ain't got no time to slow down.
And then that brings us to story 2.
Story 2. Is that the Emperor's finger in my butt, or is it just...
It is indeed the Emperor's finger.
It is the Emperor's finger.
While visiting a certain shrine at Azawa in Shishinga County of the province of Omi,
just tell me which shrine.
Emperor Tenji decided to build a temple. This was about the year 665. But where should this temple stand? The emperor prayed for help, and that night he dreamed of a monk came to him and announced that there was an excellent spot upon the northwest. The monk said that he should look that way right away. Waking up, the emperor saw a light in that direction, and the next morning he sent someone to investigate, and the messenger, still following the glow, came to the foot of Mount Sasanami.
Sasanami.
Far up a ravine, he came to a deep cave under a rock face and peered inside. He was face to face with an extraordinary old man who seemed infinitely holy and wise.
What do you want?
The messenger announced that the emperor had sent him to find out why the mountain was shining, and asked the old man politely who he was. The old man ignored him, and the messenger was upset.
None of your damn business. Get
But
off my
went
lawn.
back to his majesty to report. The emperor said,
I'll have to go there and question him myself, it seems.
and he set out.
Whoa.
His bearers brought his palanquin as close to the cave as they could, and he walked the rest of the way. The old man was still there, and he had a brocade hat and a pale violet robe, and looked more like a god than a man. Apparently, the emperor did not impress him one bit.
Damn kids.
The emperor asked,
Who are you and what are you doing here?
The old man brought his sleeves together a little and made a slight gesture of defiance.
Yeah.
The middle finger.
Here's my middle finger. Now get off my fucking lawn.
And said,
Get off my lawn, goddammit. Immortals have lived in this cave. Always, is what I say.
Then after a few more cryptic words, he vanished.
Son of a bitch. Fucking come in my lawn.
The emperor decided that this was a very holy spot indeed, and certainly a good place for a temple. The temple Shigadera was built the next year with a 16-foot high statue of Moroku. While the construction was underway, the workmen dug up a miniature pagoda that obviously was not Japanese.
It had a big old bald eagle on it holding some fireworks. It said, get off my goddamn lawn.
It could only be one of the 84,000 pagoda distributed throughout the world, each with a relic of the Buddha inside it, by the great Indian king Asoka some 900 years before.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, we do.
That's that guy.
We watch too much Cosmos.
Yeah. Yeah.
One that killed everyone. And
We'll
then,
get
he's
into
like,
it. We'll do a full story on Ahsoka at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, he was an emperor who killed a bunch of people and was a dick, and he tortured
found God.
people. And then he was like, someone came up and they're like, "Yo, bro, not cool." And he was like, "I never thought of it that way." And then he became super nice.
Yeah, he became like a
And then he
Buddha
became like
enthusiast.
one of the best kings ever, as long as he weren't one of the hundreds of thousands of people that he murdered before he got to that, oh, I never thought of it that way point.
Yeah. In front of the temple stood a great lantern. For the consecration of the temple, the emperor kindled a flame on the tip of his own right ring finger and lit the lantern with it. Then he cut off the finger and buried it under the lantern in a stone box as an offering to Moroku. Having considerable power, the emperor's finger would send any visitor who was the least unclean tumbling down into the neighboring ravine.
Just the giant middle finger sticking out of the dirt. I'll show that old man that told me to get off of his lawn.
This discouraged pilgrims completely, and a priest who took over the temple much later got bored of having no visitors. The problem was that finger. The priest decided to dig it up and get rid of it, and as soon as the workmen began, a frightful storm broke with thunder and lightning and rain and violent wind. This just made the priest angrier than ever, and then he kept his men digging until they got the little box. The finger looked perfectly fresh and gave off a pale glow, but it soon turned to liquid and disappeared.
As they open the box, they just get that air gust of, fuck you. What was that? Did anyone else hear that? Yeah.
And then soon afterwards, the priest went mad and died. The end.
The end. Yeah, by the way, the priest went crazy, did a whole thing, murdered a bunch of people. The end.
Yeah, all done.
I feel like you buried the lead there. like it was the emperor's finger.
It was the holy middle finger.
Double dick move. He boxed a fart too.
Jesus.
It was a real spiteful one.
It's in my mouth. Was that nachos?
Yeah. I can taste it.
It didn't age well.
Kimchi.
Uh,
Kimchi and cuttlefish.
Story number 3.
Story number 3.
Japan's first gold.
Oh, it's a gold rush.
When Emperor Shomu built Todaiji long ago, he had his workmen cast a huge seated bronze image of the cosmic Buddha, and he enshrined it in a correspondingly vast hall. The statue was original of the great Tojai Buddha we know today.
Would they say cosmic Buddha? Like, I know they're just talking about Buddha, but growing up on comic books, whenever they would throw cosmic in front of someone, it meant they got like a new costume and some space age. It just rings like 80s comic book. There's Buddha, and then there's cosmic Buddha who rides the solar systems on an electric guitar.
Jesus.
Shoots lightning out of his butt.
Wow. Wow.
Cosmic Buddha.
For the emperor, this great Buddha was the priceless jewel that was to draw our lands together in the Buddhist faith. And he gave himself the project heart and soul. When time came to build the dais for the Buddha to rest on, the dais would look like a lotus flower, of course.
Of course.
The emperor dug
what are
the
we,
first
fucking amateurs?
The emperor dug the first spadefuls of earth himself, and his empress carried the earth away in her long sleeves of her robe.
Yeah, I hate it. It's just kind of an opinion I have, but I hate it when people do that. How it's like always the building owner thing, where it's like, I'll dig the first shovel and we'll take a picture out of it and make a big deal out of it. And they dig like one shovel worth of dirt and they're like, cool.
Done.
Now on to all you assholes who will never be commemorated by photo. I'm going to put this picture up when this house
exactly
is built.
what you mean, like those fuckers with the goddamn scissors.
Yep.
You didn't do shit.
I'm gonna cut the ribbon. You didn't do shit.
I know. You funded everything. Good job.
Good job. Way to have money.
The temple was quickly built with willing support from all, and the great Buddha was cast. The next thing was to get thousands of sheets of gold foil to gild the Buddha with. But where were they to come from? Japan had never had any gold, and the emperor sent an envoy to China laden with treasures to buy the gold required. The next spring, the envoy returned. Craftsmen were assembled and started work, but the color of gold was wrong, and besides, there was still not enough of it, even for the great Buddha, let alone many smaller images of others, lesser halls of the temple. In this, despite the situation, the emperor called the greatest monks of the time and asked their advice. They told him about Golden Peaks, a mountain in Yoshino County of Yamato Province, and said this mountain was bound to have gold, but they reminded His Majesty that a powerful god watched over Golden Peak, and recommended that before taking any gold, His Majesty should first speak to this god. The emperor...
Give him a call before you show up. It's only nice. Yeah.
Yeah. The emperor ordered Robin, the monk in charge of the whole project, to beg the god respectfully for some of his gold. After praying for 7 days and nights, Robin had a dream. The god appeared as a monk and said to him,
The gold of my mountain was placed here by Miraku. Miraku, I don't know. Oh, the future Buddha. It will be given out when Miraku comes into the world. It must be kept till then. My role is only to guard it. But I will tell you what to do. In Shinga County of Omi Province. No, that's specifics. I like their specifics.
Not
get your
in this
get
land,
your some
somewhere
town,
in this place.
some land shit out of here.
Was it a short way or a long way?
A long way. Nobody fucking knows. But I will tell you what to do in Shinga County of Omi Province, along the river that runs to Lake Biwa. There's a spot called Tagami. Nearby is a low, isolated hill. With eastern spurs form Tsubaki, Tsubaki Point. Why do I imagine him twisting his nipples all the time? Yeah.
Because that's the voice you gave him.
You'll find a group of standing rocks. There always used to be an old man fishing from one of them. Build a chapel on that rock and shine you're in Canaan. Then pray there for your gold. You'll get it probably. Maybe. As a promise. Oh.
Robin reported his dream, and
he
the
wouldn't
emperor.
stop twisting his nipple. It was a really odd conversation.
It's a really weird dream. We were doing all sorts of weird things.
Yeah.
I don't.
He did a
know.
full corkscrew with it.
That was real weird.
Never seen a nipple stretch so far.
He told the emperor, and the emperor sent him straight off to Omi. The hill was there, and the Tsubaki Point had the strange rocks that the god had mentioned. Among them was one of the old man. Among them was the one the old man had fished from. Boom. Robin had soon made a Nyorin cannon and built the chapel, and he prayed there for gold. Shortly, Mutsu and Shimotsuki Providence in the north sent a gift to the emperor in the form of some gold-colored sand. Metal workers summoned and melted it and found it was really the most beautiful yellow gold. The delighted emperor sent for more and quickly arrived. So much more was left over that the gilding of the great Buddha that there was plenty for all the other Buddhas too. That was how gold was first found in Japan.
All the Buddhas.
All the golden Buddhas.
I like to imagine that the
All the
old
good
man
Buddhas.
who was fishing on all the
Put your hands up. Sorry.
And like that side by side pose. Yeah, I like to imagine that the old man who had his fishing spot taken to build the thing was the same old man that got kicked out of his cave. I lost my house, but at least I got my fishing spot. Move aside, peasant. I am to build here. Some god with twisty nipples told me to come.
So weird.
It was so weird.
Moving on. Story
Moving
4.
on.
Joji and Baramon.
Joji and Baramon.
Long ago, Emperor Shomu invited Joji to preside at the consecration ceremony for the great Buddha of Todaiji.
Hey, was that the one we just talked about?
This was natural because Gyoji was a beloved saint, a great teacher, a preacher, and a builder whose work helped everyone throughout the land. But Gyoji declined. He said,
Sorry, Your Majesty. I'm not worthy. The man you need to see is on his way here from across the sea, I think.
His Majesty let Gyoji lead 100 monks and a band of court musicians to Naniwa in Setsu Province, where they waited on the shore to welcome the foreign monk. The monk Gyoji meant was Baramon, an Indian from Kaibure, where the Buddha himself was born.
Oh, so he's got a little bragging rights there.
Indeed.
Step aside, I am from the Buddha place.
Baramon, who longed to meet the Bodhisattva Monju in person, had led in a dream that Monju lived on a Chinese mountain named Godaisen, and he left for Godaisen immediately. But an old man he met on the way told him that for the benefit of all sensitive beings there, Monju had now been born again in Japan. Hey. So Baramon went to Japan, and thanks to the divine inspiration, Gyoji knew he was coming. When Baramon failed to arrive at Naniwa, Goji set a bowl of holy water afloat in the sea. The bowl sailed off westward, undisturbed by the waves, until it vanished from sight. Then it reappeared, sailing landward, and this time in front of Baramon's ship. Baramon knew about the consecration and hoped that he would be there in time. Berriman and Gyoji joyfully took each other's hands, and it was a wonder how the Japanese and the Indian seemed to have known each other all their lives and talked together like they're the best of friends. Gyoji says in a verse.
Oh, yeah, there, like the lovely...
Verse.
Huh?
Sing it.
I don't know how to sing there. Like the love we pledged to each other is, brothers in truth before Shaka. And the vulture peak back there is still alive, and so we meet again. Totally do.
And Berriman, who recognized Gyoji, the bodhisattva he sought, answered,
How rightfully we pledged each other love in cabaret. For now, at least, I see Manchu's face.
Nice, thank you. That was how we in Japan found out that Gyoji was actually an incarnation of Manju. Gyoji brought Berriman to the emperor, who was very happy to meet him and immediately appointed him to preside over the consecration. It went off beautifully. The end.
The end.
That was the last sentence. It went off beautifully.
It went off beautifully. They definitely banged, right?
Oh, yeah. Story 5.
Story 5.
We're just going to keep moving. The old mackerel peddler.
It's the same old man. They took my cave and they took my fishing spot. And I'm going to sell these mackerels and find a better place.
It's funny. It's always an old man.
It's always an old man. It's always the same old man. Just constantly getting fucked with.
When Todaiji had been built and the great Buddha was ready to be consecrated, Emperor Shomu appointed an Indian monk, Berriman.
Hey, that's
recently
the thing
arrived
we
in
just
Japan.
talked about.
Yeah, recently arrived in Japan.
I love it when they fall back on each other.
To preside over the ceremony. But who should the Berriman's assistant be? I wonder.
I wonder.
The emperor could not decide, and he worried till he had a dream in which a holy being came to him and said,
You must appoint as assistant the first man to pass on the temple on the day of the consecration. Never mind a noble or a nobody. He just not a woman. Damn Buddha. As long as it's not a woman, because we know they can't get stuff done. Buddha!
The consecration was set up for the...
Consecration? The conflagnation.
Was set up for the 14th day of the third moon of 752. The emperor made up his mind to do exactly as he had been told and posted guards at the appropriate time to keep watch. Along came an old man carrying a basket of mackerels covered over his shoulder on a pole. The guards whisked him straight off to the emperor, who dressed him in priestly robes and had almost appointed him when the old man finally protested, saying,
God damn it, your majesty, I lost my house, I lost my fishing spot, and I'm not at all the man you're looking for. I'm just trying to sell these mackerels so I can move on to something better.
But the emperor ignored him. Like so many others.
Everyone keeps just fucking this old man.
Soon it was time for the ceremony, and the old man was installed on the throne right next to Berriman, with his basket of mackerels beside him. His pole was stuck in the ground east of the entrance hall, and when the rite was over, Berriman came down from his throne, and the old man just vanished. The emperor said to himself,
I thought, though, he looked like he was magic, even though he said he was just a regular guy and that I had stolen his house before and his fishing spot.
I was totally ignoring him.
I totally never listened to that old guy. He just kind of flaps his mouth and I'm like, hey, go dig up a middle finger.
Then he had a look at the basket. Those had definitely been mackerel in there, but now that they were 8 scrolls of the Kigon Sutra, the emperor wept and prostrated himself in awe. His vow to build the temple had been well conceived, and the Buddha had come to help him. Woo!
Woo!
The mackerel peddler's pole is still by the entrance of that hall. It has not grown, or burst into bloom, or done anything in particular. It is just there.
It's just a sticky left to the ground. What happened to the dude?
It's Spanish.
He just fuck it. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm good. I'm out of here.
Peace.
I'm taking my goddamn macro. You can have this box of scrolls.
These mighty sex moves.
Yeah, these mighty sex moves.
Actually, I don't know what a Kigan Sutra is. So.
No, it's not the Kama Sutra. The Kigan Sutra.
That's very different.
That's where you break the dick off. 1,001 moves that will break a man's dick off.
I'm going to assume they're holy scrolls.
All
right, story 6.
Kigo Sutra.
Kobodashi.
Kobodashi.
Long ago, Kobodashi braved the voyage to China to study the teaching and brought back to the esoteric Buddhism. The eccentric?
Esoteric?
Esoteric.
Boom!
Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah. Oh, the crowd goes wild.
I've never heard of that before. Sorry. Which he then spread far and wide. When he was getting old, he gathered his disciples together and distributed amongst them many temples he had founded. But there was one temple, the greatest of all, which he had yet to found because he still did not know where to build it. This was the one on Mount Koya. Kobodashi had planned this temple even in China. The day before he left China, he stood on a cliff overlooking the sea and hurled a 3-pronged Vajra.
3-pronged vagina.
That's what I'm talking about. Towards Japan. As he did so, he prayed that the Vajra should land on the right place for the temple. The temple would last until Moroku comes into the world. The Vajra soared high up and disappeared into the clouds.
Flying vaginas.
Now that his disciples were provided for, Kobodashi decided to go looking for the Vajra. He set out from the capital in the 6th moon of 816, so June.
6th moon of 816, June-ish?
I would say June.
We'll call it.
Well, it was also 1860, so June would be more like February.
For real.
Okay. Cool. Finally, in Uchi County of Yamato Province, he met a hunter. I know
that place. We talked about it in the previous story.
Yes. He met a hunter, an immensely powerful, red-faced man, 8 feet tall, wearing a greenish coat, armed with a bow and arrow, and the hunter had 2 little black dogs. A big one and a little one.
Chihuahuas.
He asked Kobodashi where he was going, and Kobodashi explained his Vajra. He said,
"It's got 2 lips, the little man."
Thank you, Dustin.
Well, I prayed for it to land on the mountain. Good enough for you.
For you.
Good enough for meditation. And now I'm looking for it. Have you seen a vagina around here? Maybe on top of a mountain?
The hunter replied.
Well, I'm just a hunter from Mount Koya. I know where your badge is, so let me tell you the way.
He loosened his dogs, and they quickly disappeared. Kobodashi followed the hunter's direction until he reached a large river on the border between Yamato and the province of Ki. There, he met a mountain man who told him that the place he wanted was a basin in the mountain. A basin wasn't a basin.
It's the same old man
in the mountains, some way to the south. Thank you.
Don't go near my fishing spot. They turned that into a temple.
The man went with Kobodashi. And he told Kobodashi as they walked along.
They took my fishing spot, took my house. I'm the mountain king. And all this land is my gift to you.
They got to a place that was just like a bowl, and the 8 peaks all around it. Huge cypresses towered there, as dense and as straight as bamboos.
Bamboo?
One of the trees was forked, and in the fork was the Vajara. Kavadashi was overjoyed. He asked the gods to name his name and learned it was Nifu no Monjin.
You're the first person that's ever asked that.
And the god went on to say,
And Hunter, you met, that's Koya the Mojin. Koya no Mojin. Koya no Myojin. Myojin.
Myojin.
Yeah, that's him.
And then he vanished.
Poof, I'm out of here.
Kobadaishi went back to the capital, resigned all of his officers, and settled his affairs. And then he returned to Mount Koya, where he built the temple and named it. By imperial wish, Kongobuki, the temple of the Vajara Peak. Vajara Peak. Finally, he prepared the place for his own passing.
Wouldn't that be Vajara Valley?
It's in there.
It's in there.
On the 21st day of the third moon of 835, he sat in a cave in the lotus postures and passed into the eternal meditation as his disciples around him chanted the name of the Buddha Moroku. Long afterwards, his disciples opened the cave, shaved his head, and his hair had continued to grow.
We shaved his eyebrows while he was sleeping and drew a dick on his forehead.
But they never came back, and it was only much later that someone opened the cave again. This was Kenkin, a student of one of Kobadashi's disciples, and a high-ranking monk of the mountain.
A monk of the mountain.
Wow. When Kankin opened the cave, he was met by a thick cloud of dust. And when the dust cleared, he saw that it had been from Kobadaishi's robe, which has disintegrated and had been swept up by the wind as he opened the cave. Kobadaishi's hair was a foot long. Kankin, who had washed and put on a fresh robe beforehand, shaved the saint's head once more with a new razor.
My God, that's still a dick drawn on his head underneath all this hair.
The cord of the saint's crystal rosary had rotten away, and the beads laid scattered before him. Kankin gathered them up, strung them on a new cord, and put the rotisserie
chicken back in the oven. Because it wasn't what? The story just switched up. He was making a chicken, didn't I tell you?
I lost mine. Okay. He put him back in Kobadashi's hand, and then finally he dressed the saint in new robes. As he left the cave, he wept, overcome by a feeling of deep personal loss.
Oh.
No one had ever opened the cave again, but when a pilgrim comes there, the doors of the chapel built against it would open themselves, and the mountain is heard to rumble. Sometimes people hear the sound of a small gong. And it is also remarkable that here, so deep in the mountains, that even bird songs is rare. No one ever feels afraid. With two gods, Nifu and Koya, they have their shrine side by side below the mountain and is still protected as they vowed to do so long ago. Countless pilgrims still visit Mount Koya, all men. Women have never been allowed on the mountain. That is true. It's right here, yeah. Women have never been allowed.
A little hardcore there, Buddha. Yeah, no, this is... And he buried himself eternally in his man cave.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
Damn.
Hi. Yeah. I like how they finished that by solidifying that it was a man cave too. It's my literal man cave, bro. No chicks allowed for eternity.
We have time for story 7?
Yeah, let's do it. Keep on moving here.
Story 7, The Cannon in the Pine.
Cannon.
This was a K. K-A-N-N.
Cannon.
One hall at Kofu. Go fuck yourself, gee.
Go fuck yourself.
The great temple in Nara enshrines a miraculous statue of an 11-headed canon. This is how the statue came to be there. On the very first day of 1007, a monk named Chokan Dick, was on his way back to the palace called Deer Park. Like, that's deer in the headlights. Deer Park.
Of all the names, that's the most American name I've seen so far. Got Mount Fukuyama, the Todenshi Plaza, and then over there is Deer Park.
A little way south of the temple, when the small boy came up to him asking to go home with him and to serve him, Dick readily agreed. 6 years later, in 1013, the boy lay dying. He told Chokan. That's you.
I won't last much longer. When my breathing stops, don't disturb my body in any way. Don't you do it, you weirdo. Put me exactly as I am in a coffin, then hang the coffin in the pines. Gee. Over at Deer Park, where we first met after 7 days. But not earlier. You can open it and look at me.
And then he died as though falling asleep. Weeping, Chokan followed the boy's instructions and hung him in the pine. He walked on for several hours to Hasadera and went into retreat before the temple's own most holy 11-headed canon. Now and again he could not even help but bewailing his advancing age and charging canon with having neglected him. 7 days later he headed back to Nara. A delicious fragrance filled the air around the pine at Deer Park. And when he opened it, the coffin ablaze of lights burst forth, and inside was a life-size statue of the 11-headed canon. Astonished and overjoyed, Chokan regretted all of his complaints, and he carried the statue on his back to Ko-Fuck-Yourself-G, and enshrined it there as its present hall. After he died, an oracle revealed that he had passed on to Fudaraku, Canon's paradise.
Yeah. That's good. That's good for him.
Yeah.
It's nice that they're not fucking with that old man anymore.
And do we have time for the last?
Yeah. We got one more story, guys.
One last story.
One more fun story here.
What was this one? Number 8.
The dog and his wife.
It's not at all what it seems.
It's not at all what it seems. It never is.
Sorry, I thought you'd give me a little bit of cotton mouth.
It happens. It does.
A young man of the capital once went for a walk in the mountains that raise so attractively north of the city.
Look at those fucking attractive mountains.
They look like titties.
Yeah, I'd fuck that peak.
Is
that Mount Vagina?
As the sun sank in the sky, he became more and more lost and ended up with no idea how to get back.
I have no clue where I'm at.
There seemed to be no shelter anywhere, a problem which worried him greatly, until at last he glimpsed at a hut far down the hollow. It was a human dwelling, at least, and he was grateful and made his way to it.
At least it was a human dwelling.
A pretty girl of 20 came out when she heard him, and the sight of her gladdened his heart still more. She, on the other hand, seemed troubled and asked what he was doing there. He explained, saying,
I couldn't find any shelter for the night, and I was very glad to see your place.
She answered,
Oh, no one ever comes here. You won't be getting in bed with this attractive young body.
20.
Of 20.
Look at this ass.
Look at this ass. Look at this keister. The master will be back soon, and, when he finds you, he'll be sure you're some boyfriend of mine. No, what do you do then, huh?
He says.
You'll think we're banging? Because I'll tell him. I will. I like to brag and bluff.
He says.
I'll think of something. The thing is that I can't possibly get home tonight. I just have to stay.
She says.
Well, all right, if you must stay. I'll tell him you're an older brother I haven't seen in years. And like you were walking out looking for Mount Vagina when you stumbled into these Twin Peaks. And you got lost and you came here by chance. Remember that, though. When you get back to town, don't tell anyone about us, or I will tell him you're my lover.
The young man says.
I understand. Thank you very much. I won't tell a soul if that's the way you want it. I can keep a secret.
She led him inside and spread him on a mat to sit on.
I thought that was going. I told you I was going to bang you. Now spread those cheeks.
Then she came very close to him and whispered.
I told you I was going to bang you. Now spread those cheeks. Actually, I'm a gentleman's daughter from the capital. This creature, he stole me. And for years now, he's done with me as he pleases. Not very often, though. He prefers to go bowling and drink with his friends. Something about my voice, he said, that just instantly turns it to rope. He'll be back now any minute, though, and you'll see what I mean. I'll show you. Oh, you can turn a pole to rope in no time with a voice like this.
She sobbed pathetically. That's what it says in the story. It's so mean.
Oh, he doesn't give me everything he needs. Well, he does give me everything I need, though.
As far as the young man could tell, this creature of hers must be some sort of demon. He was terrified. Night fell. Outside, something howled. While the young man inside churns with fear, the girl went to open the door. In came an enormous white dog. Why, the girl was his wife. At the very sight of the visitor, the dog stopped short and howled again. The girl hastened to tell her story, and the young man being her brother. She cried and burst into tears, saying,
It's so good to see you, Carl. How have you been?
The dog seemed to listen, and then he came in and lay down by the fire while the girl sat beside him, spinning hemp. Shortly.
Let me just twist up a fatty real quick, okay, Carl? How was your bowling?
Shortly, she served a very nice meal, and when it was over, the young man lay down to sleep while the dog retired to an inner room and went to bed with the girl. The next morning, the girl brought the young man breakfast and whispered to him again that he must never tell anyone. She said,
Come back sometime, though. Now he believes you're my brother. I'll gladly do anything I can for you. Wink, wink. Oh, yeah, my teeth come out, by the way.
The young man promised silence and said he would return. And then he finished his breakfast and set off to town. He had no sooner arrived than he began babbling this story to everyone. The word spread, and some spirited braves wanted right off to go and shoot the dog and bring this woman back. They got the young man to guide them.
I want to bring this woman back. You haven't heard her talk yet, bro. Maybe we should just leave her out there.
A couple hundred set off, each well armed with bows and arrows and clubs, and they reached the place soon enough and spotted the hut down in the hollow. They shouted,
Ah, there it is.
The dog heard them, and out he came to see, and recognized the young man. Darting back inside, he reemerged in a moment, driving the girl before him. Both fled deeper into the mountains, and intruders shot many arrows at them, but scored no hits.
He's not an it. His name is Carl.
Next, they tried pursuit, but the dog and the girl fairly flew, until the youths decided they must be supernatural and gave up.
I think you said excuse more. You go get groceries today? No, a grocery store might be supernatural, so I just gave up.
Once back in town, the man who had started all this trouble fell ill and lay down. In 2 or 3 days, he was dead. The dog was surely a god, and the man who had told him about it was very foolish indeed, and no one ever saw this dog again.
He got away. Lived happily ever after. in a dead-end marriage, Carl. You never talk to me anymore. You just want to go bowling with your friends. Oh, there it is again. Every time with you, Carl. Every time I say something.
You're fucking crying. Shut up. You just think of your dog fucking snoring on the couch the way he does.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's like sleeping next to this wolf.
But he's real comfy.
I like to think it was the size of Princess Mononoke's wolf.
Uh-huh.
I like to think.
I like to think. Yeah. Hope you folks enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Ope you had fun.
Yeah.
You know. Be sure to lock your dogs up. Guard your wives.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you see an old man out there that just looks sad, just tell him, hey.
Fucking leave him alone.
Leave him alone. Don't fuck with him.
He's so fucking
He's had enough already.
Poor guy.
God damn it, my dog got out. Took my wife.
Took my rock.
Took my rock. Took my fishing spot. Took my cave and buried a middle finger in it.
Took my mackerel.
Took my mackerel right out my basket. Yeah, I was walking in India and some guy asked me a question. I don't fucking know. Yeah. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, tell your friends.
Yes, like our stories.
Like
please.
our stories, please.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. Let us know what you think. You can find us, easiest way to find us on Twitter at HowleyBoys at HAOLE_BOYS.
And our merch shop.
Yeah, we got merch. Check out our merch, teespring.com, teespring.com/high-mythology-merch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you hit us up anywhere, let us know if you got suggestions. You know, if that's something you guys want to hear.
Still haven't heard because I have a whole bunch, and I know we haven't even stopped them all.
And asking some questions, so we'll be there for the tough questions.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.